This is Trey with Israelite Preparedness, and coming to give you guys a little bit about what's on my mind right now. So I was just thinking, earlier today I actually had an interesting conversation with my dentist, of all people, and dental hygienist. And the dental hygienist, you know, she single, lives on her own and stuff, and so I was talking about, you know, the importance of being able to protect oneself, kind of in a roundabout way. And she actually had an experience once where this guy came into the campsite with a whole bunch of them and started actually harassing a lot of the girls, and they had to kick him out. And it was kind of a very edgy, sketchy scenario. And at that moment, you know, she had realized, like, looking back, like, she ended up sleeping in a car that night, I think she said. She was just thinking, you know, man, being able to protect yourself, having a firearm right about now sure would be nice. You know, it kind of goes always back to that mentality. I'd rather have it and not need it than not have it and need it. But that reminded me of actually two stories, two testimonials that are very near and dear to me. I had a buddy, I was a raft guide in Tennessee, and I had a buddy who would come up there and guide sometimes. Really nice guy. And he and a couple of his friends actually went camping. And he had his significant other, they were actually about to get married. And they're on this camping trip. And they're in there, you know, they're having a good time around the campfire, and this guy, this, you know, kind of like a drifter guy, comes up to their campsite and sits down, hangs out with them. I can't remember if they were drinking and if they gave him some beer or what happened. So I'm not sure if there's alcohol involved. But, you know, they hung out, got late, and then they asked the guy, you know, told him they're gonna have to go to bed. And so the guy leaves. Well, around like 2 in the morning, all of a sudden, this guy, let's just call him, you know, I don't know, Billy Bob, and his girlfriend, they all of a sudden someone starts pushing on the tent. Someone's actually coming up to it and literally pushing and shoving and like forcefully kind of hurting his girlfriend. So he goes out, he's like, who's out here, what's going on? And it's that guy, and he's over there by the fire. And, you know, so he starts conversating with him, and they're chatting. Next thing you know, because he's asking him to stop it, cut it out, you know, please leave, politely. The guy pulls a knife, sticks him, and that boy died right there in that campsite. He was 21 years old. Billy Bob died. The kicker is his girlfriend, I don't know if she knew it at the time or not, but she was carrying his child. She was pregnant. She had to raise that child without a father because of that situation right there. Now, as far as I know, they didn't have any firearms. And the Billy Bob, he was 21 years old, this young guy. 21 years old, had his whole life ahead of him. You know, had a significant other he's about to marry, was going to be a father, and he got killed. He got killed because, I'll tell you right now, if I go camping and I got my family, no matter what, I got a gun on me, but I'm definitely, if someone starts pushing on the tent, I'm coming out with a gun in my hand. It might be at the low ready, but you don't do that. You don't mess around with that. That's like poking a hornet's nest. Who comes up and does something like that without expecting some kind of pushback? And that's what that man needed. That's what that drifter needed. That man needed to be set right. That man needed to be shown that you can't just come up to people and just ruin their whole lives. And not only ruin her life and their friends' lives, and I lost a buddy, but also ruin that child's life. So that sure would have been a good time to have a firearm. You wouldn't have even had to necessarily use it on the guy unless he got aggressive and agitated and started to make threats. You could have kept at the low ready and told that man to move on. And you know, you could have done what the Israelites did when they were rebuilding. You know, when they came back and they were building the second temple, you could have then packed up your camp with one hand, and with the other hand, you have a weapon in it. You got a gun in your other hand or on your hip. And get out of there. You don't got to hurt that guy unless it absolutely came down to it. But that man who had absolutely no right to do such a thing took his life and took the future away from his child and his wife, soon to be. So, if that's not sobering, I don't know what is. These are things that make you realize how fragile life is and how it is your responsibility to protect yourself as well as your loved ones. Now, another scenario. This is very, very, very close to me. Now, my wife, before she was my wife, she was going to get her medical board's license renewed. We were dating. And she was going in to get it anyways, get her medical license renewed. And she was walking, she's in downtown Atlanta, and she's walking over to, you know, the board's office. And as she's walking over there, she gets grabbed. This dude literally reaches out of his window and grabs my wife, soon to be, and pulls her into his car. And he's trying to kidnap her. She's halfway in, halfway out, kicking and screaming for dear life. Now, thank God there was a security guard, just like a parking lot security guard, who was there, because this individual was like, "Hey, hey," and, you know, started running towards the car, and that man lets go of my wife and takes off. Well, as he's taking off, of course, my wife and this guard, they want to get the license plate. Nope, because it's covered up with a sheet of paper, they said it was a sheet of blue paper. So, something that a lot of people don't really know about, you know, Georgia or Atlanta, is that it has one of the highest sex trafficking, you know, whatever percentages in America, if not, I think even in the world. It's bad. It's very, very bad, the amount of people that are used and abused over there. That guy was clearly stalking. He's waiting in his car. He's got, you know, he's got his, you know, I's dotted, T's crossed, because he's got his license plates covered up. So he knows what he's trying to do. He's trying to do something shady. And that man left that parking lot, and who knows where he went, who knows what he did, but it's safe to say, or maybe to assume, that he was going to do it again. Maybe not that day, maybe the next day, maybe a week from then, maybe a month from then, who knows, because the guy's probably getting paid money to do something like that. You never know what's up with these people's minds. Or maybe he wasn't gonna, you know, maybe he was just gonna kill her and rape her or whatever, who knows. Maybe he wasn't gonna be a, you know, sex slave kingpin. You don't know. But the point is that if my wife had had a gun at that moment, then that man would be where he belongs. That man would be pushing up daisies. He'd be 6 feet under where he belongs. Someone who is willing to steal people, to attempt to steal people, and probably has stolen people and probably stole people later on, should be put down. You don't steal people. You don't kidnap individuals. Our Heavenly Father, the Most High, He says that, you know, we are His and we are sovereign and we have rights as His children. We have rights to self-defense and self-preservation. We have rights, you know, if God blesses us with a family, to then protect them as well. We have rights to try and better ourselves, and most of all, to serve Him. It's going to be hard to serve Him and spread the word of His truth if you're dead, because dead men do not tell tales. They don't tell tales. That's it, period. Their silence. Sure would be nice to know what their story is. Sure would be nice to hear all these people's testimonies who are in the grave. But they're gone. What about all those people, you know, over there in Germany? World War II, things like that. One of the first things Adolf Hitler did was create a gun registration, which then he turned that on its head and said, well, you know, we need the gun registration for safety. We need to know where all the guns are just for safety. After they found out where all the guns were, they then said, well, no, that's still not good enough. We just need to take all the guns. So everybody was mandated to give up their firearms, to bring, even people in Austria, countries that, you know, Germany even annexed, even Austria, you know, when they got annexed, they were happy about it because things were so bad after World War I, and the same thing happened to them. They ended up taking their firearms. They ended up telling them if they didn't bring them to the court office, to the police or whatever, you know, to the, you know, I don't know what you would call, whatever the police are called over in Austria and Germany, the local police. If you didn't do that, then they were going to come to your house because they had you registered. So everybody did it out of fear. Okay? That's not cool. That's not cool. Whenever, you know, Peter sliced off that guy's ear, did Jesus say, no, now Peter, now get your sword here and let's hand it over to the Romans. No, you shouldn't have that. You know, let's make sure that they register it with a, you know, with a serial number and turn it in. Maybe you'll get it a year from now. No, he's like, put it back in your sheath. The only reason why I told him to do that is because prophecy had to be fulfilled. They had to take Yeshua. They had to take Jesus. Now, my wife, she didn't have a gun at that time. She didn't have a handgun. And honestly, I don't even think I had a handgun. I had like a shotgun or something. But, you know, here I am in my 20s, and I'd grown up my whole life, Boy Scouts, grown up in the country, you know, shooting shotguns and 22s, but I'd never had a real interest in handguns, per se. I thought they were cool and they were kind of fun to mess around with, but I didn't know a lot about them. I didn't understand them, because there's a lot of myths and fables about them. But as soon as my wife told me that, the very next day, we went to, it was like Sportsman's Warehouse or something, I don't know. We were there and we were buying a gun, we were testing out handguns, and then we were buying a gun and we were training with that gun, with a handgun. Because that'll rattle you, that'll shake you up. That's a cold smack in the face right there. When you have something like that happen to you, something near and dear to you, someone who you love. You know, there's people out there that have lost their kids, when they could have protected them. They've lost their kids' lives because here's the thing, criminals don't follow the laws. They don't follow the rules. Don't matter how many signs you post up saying you're a gun-free zone. It doesn't matter how many laws you put on the books. There's too many firearms, first of all, so they're gonna get their hands on one no matter what. And second of all, they're not gonna let some stupid little sign to make them leave their handguns in their car or whatever, or their firearms. No, I mean, come on, this happens all the time. Again and again and again. Schools, gun-free zones. What happens in those gun-free zones? We know what happens, and that's awful. But movie theaters, all kinds of places, restaurants, doctor's office, offices, like, you know, YouTube was even attacked, I believe. All kinds of places put these signs, and these criminals aren't going to obey those laws because they don't care about rules, because they're already, if they're willing to murder someone, which is one of the absolutely worst punishments that you could face from this, from this judicial system, from this police enforcement system, from this Roman centurion system. Oh, did I say that? Excuse me. I mean, there's a lot of great police officers out there. I just believe that there's people that are behind the scenes who pull their strings, pull their boss's strings, and so on and so forth, and basically just to police the people. And what they're doing is they're stepping on our rights. If you consider yourself an Israelite, you have faith and you believe and you follow the Messiah and you do your best to keep the law, statutes, and commandments, okay? Like even Yeshua preached. You know, you try your best to do what that whole Bible says to the best of your abilities. You know, you're grafted in, you're a child of Israel, because to say that you believe in Yeshua is one thing. There is Greek belief and there is Hebrew, Israelite belief. Greek is what you would call mental ascension. It's just believing something, saying that you believe in it, and not actually having any works or having any function in your life that's changed, okay? Because you know what? Talk is cheap, okay? Put your money where your mouth is, right? But then on the other hand, you got Hebrew, which is concrete. The word belief in Hebrew means that if you believe it, then you will show actions to prove that you believe that. And that makes perfect sense. That makes perfect sense. But we've grown up in a Greek, Roman, Western culture, okay? That's why you have all the Roman names, you know, the Senate, you know, you got even the word canon, you know, you've got all kinds of, there's so many things that are in our society that are absolutely 100% Roman origin or Greek. And you can look into that and do some searching on it. It's absolutely everywhere. So just think about that. Think about how freeing the Word of God is and how it gives you all these rights, because you were born with these rights as an individual, and no person has the right to come and then step on those rights, says God, the creator of the world himself. Or you can just abide and live like all of us already basically do, constantly under the oppression of Roman authoritarianism and their laws, which there's so many of them. Just the tax code alone. Oh, taxes, that's another thing that the Greeks and Romans used to love to do. Dividing up the land and selling it for a price. When do you think that started happening? When the Greeks came in. When the Greeks started coming in, they started dividing up lands and provinces and things that they had nothing to do with, but just because they say they conquered these people, now it's their land, the government's land. You know, Greece, it's their land. The Macedonians, or you know, Rome or Persia, the Medes, on and on. Babylon, that's what they did. Okay, that these are things that well, actually, I'm sorry, let me hold up, let me backtrack. I'm not sure that the Babylonians did it, nor the Medes and the Persians, but I know that you can actually look in the Apocrypha where it starts to talk about the dividing up the land for a price when it comes to the Greeks, okay? So here's the deal. Just that tax code alone, 70,000 pages thick, will kill a man if you lay it on top of him. That's just the tax code. That's not including all the other millions of laws. On average, people commit one felony a day without knowing it. There's one law that I was looking at recently that was something like to have a dog, I believe it was like a dog off its leash, or even just to have a dog. I can't remember the exact law. It depends on, you know, your state and location. Within so many feet of a police department is a felony. I remember in Georgia, there's laws on the books, old laws, that state, you know, if a man and a woman are walking on a sidewalk, the man has to walk closest to the cars. So the woman's here, the man's here, cars are coming up and down this way. The man has to stay like this, okay? I guess, you know, so that way if car swerves or something, it hits the man instead first. I don't know. That's crazy. There's a lot of weird, crazy laws out there that we abide by as people. And when we do that, I'm not saying break laws and things on purpose, but what I am saying is that the Bible itself has been ruled, the law of the land of America, even the Senate has ruled on that. Now, if that's the case, then you absolutely 100% have the right to defend yourself. No matter what a Constitution says, no matter what Bill of Rights says, you have that right already inherently as just born a sovereign individual. But we come and then we forfeit those rights for comfort or whatever, or to not make waves. If you know what you're doing, you know, you have the power to say, no, I don't consent. to you coming in and taking away the ability for me to keep my wife and children safe? Are you kidding me? No, I don't consent to that. Absolutely not. Our government, they get to have nuclear bombs. They could take me out right now with a drone if they wanted to. They've got Hellfire missiles, boy. They got it all. If they can have that, then I can have my little pea shooter AR-15. I don't think there's any problem with that. Okay? So you have to ask yourself, what's the real issue here? You have to ask yourself, what's the real underlying agenda? When you see people trying to snatch anything, shall not be infringed means don't mess with it at all. Shall not be infringed, right? So I just get fired up because it breaks my heart, because I think about how many lives could have been saved if people had firearms. And you know, you need to know what to do with them. You need to be smart about it and not be a fool. And you need to eliminate the possibility of collateral damage. You know, you need to be respectful. You know, that's why I got some videos up about training and how that's important to train and do those hard things, and to know how to work your firearms, because they're not they're not magic. You know, they're not magic whatsoever. You have to know how to operate them. You know, efficiently, okay? So I know that I'm speaking with a lot of zeal here. I know I'm speaking with a whole lot of enthusiasm and passion, and I'm not doing that to upset anyone or hurt anybody's feelings, but I am doing that because this is something that I'm very, very, very passionate about, and I have a heart for people who don't understand. It doesn't matter what race, what creed, what color, none of that matters. You have the right, as being created in the image of God, to protect yourself and your loved ones. So I hope that gives you a little something to chew on, and I hope that hopefully this helped you guys in some way, and that you put this to good use and you start to implement it in your lives and share it with others. Thanks. This is Trey with Israelite Preparedness.